energy transition. We are changing at the moment completely the way we are generating energy, generating electricity, and also consuming electricity. More and more renewable electricity is not just powering those lights, but is heating our homes, our buildings, is powering industry, and is powering transport. And solar plays a very important role in this whole revolution, in this energy transition. Last year, we installed as much solar to power additional 12 million homes, more than 12 million homes in Europe. And very soon, solar will be the #1 electricity source in Europe. As you can imagine, this means also that we need a lot of people to power this transition, this revolution, to work in solar. Last year, we already employed 650,000 people in our sector, but soon, and that is in 2025 already, we will need more than 1 million workers in our sector. In 2027, 1.2 million workers. So we need you to work in solar, to join us to thrive this revolution. And this is why we're organizing this event today. We want to bring students, we want to bring job seekers, we want to bring those who want to change sectors together with solar companies. What can you expect from today? We have dozens of very interesting solar companies who are joining us today, who are happy to exchange their experience with you, who are happy to give you tips and tricks how to enter our sector, who will tell you more about what kind of job opportunities we have, because we need a lot of different people to join our sector. We not just need installers, we need electrical and mechanical contractors, a lot of them, but we need, for example, also manufacturing, design engineers, we need data scientists, and we also need legal people, we need project managers, so a lot of different profiles, and those companies will tell you more. We also have quite some networking opportunities, so please join also our online platform for those opportunities. Now to finish, I would like to share with you that I truly love my solar job. And you know why I'm loving my job? It is because it is a purposeful job. It is making sure that we are tackling climate change, that we make sure that our generation, but also the generations to come, will have a livable planet. Solar is making sure that energy is secured in Europe, that we're not depending from fossil fuels anymore. And last but not least, with the solar job that I have, I am contributing concretely to have everyone benefiting from affordable energy, not just households, but also competitive energy for industry. And this is why I'm loving my solar job, apart from that I see a lot of great people working in the solar job, which I love to work with. So with this, I'm handing over to my dear colleague, Christoph Litz. He's market analyst at SolarPower Europe, and Christoph is going to tell you a little bit more about jobs in solar and the platform that we're having.
Exactly.
Over to you, Christoph.
Exactly. Thank you, Abulga. And I will just pick the pointer pointing here. So, welcome everyone from my side also. So, the point of my presentation here will really be to offer a frame on the discussion about what are we talking about when we're discussing about solar job, when we're discussing about the solar industry. What does it represent exactly for someone that will be new to the sector? So to start, and before we deep dive on the different session we'll have this afternoon, we would like to do a bit of a context setting presentation. So first of all, where do we come from as the solar sector? So when you have here on the slide, it's actually the annual installation of solar PV in the European Union from 2012 to 2022. So what you can see is that from 2012, we had already a first peak of installation. And why did we show that? Show that after that was a bit of a decrease. But what we're seeing now for the past 4, 5, and almost 6 years is enormous growth across the whole sector. As was mentioned by Walburga earlier, in 2022, we already installed 40.2 gigawatts. That's already 43% more than the year before, which is 30% more than the year before, and 30% more than 2 years before. And if we're looking a bit forward, and if we're giving a bit of teasing of what will happen in 2023, we are already expecting way more than 50 gigawatts to be installed in the EU. So when we're talking about solar in the EU, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a growing industry, a growing business, and in the long term, the first source of electricity by 2030 in the European Union. So that is a big deal as a sector to work in. But to come a bit closer to our topic of the day, which is jobs in the solar industry, especially in the European Union, what you have here is actually the different sectors in which we find workers in the European Union. So the gray bar you have in the middle shows actually the total amount of worker, which is 650,000, as mentioned by Walburga. So that's the amount of people that were working in the solar industry in 2022 in the EU. And then if we deep dive a bit into where are those workers specifically located, we have the four categories that we have under the bars on the left, which is the manufacturing, the deployment, operation and maintenance, and then the decommissioning and recycling. As you can see on the left, the manufacturing is still rather slow in Europe. It's still rather slow, not so many people are working yet. It's not because it's not an intensive industry in terms of job creation. It's because in Europe we are lacking a bit of manufacturing production at the moment, but it's something corrected by policymakers and something that's really looking into to develop those numbers. And then the column in green in the middle is exactly the opposite. We have almost 85% of workers in that category in deployment. And what deployments mean? Deployments means actually putting the panels on the roof, putting the panel on the ground, analyzing the ground field to have optimal deployment. So it's all linked with that phase of a booming sector when we need to install a lot of PV. Coming to the one just after, the operation and maintenance, which is way lower than deployment. It's actually a consequence that when you have installed the solar panel, there is not much work to do after. The solar panel is harvesting the light to create energy, and you have to replace some panels, some inverters, some materials. But on overall, not so much work is necessary. So that's what we call the solar industry a capex intensive industry, which is a lot of deployment, a lot of workers at the deployment stage. But it's not an OPEX intensive industry. We don't have so much work needed once it's operating. And then lastly, but that will come only in a couple of years, so we see decommissioning and recycling being still pretty low now, around 5,000 people in that industry. Why is that today? That when we install solar panel, the lifetime of a panel is around 25 to 30 years, but we only started to install solar panel at a high scale around 10 to 15 years ago. So it means that we still have 10 years in which those panels are operating all properly without having the need to recycling. To be recycled. However, that's something that we expect to change in about 10 to 15 years when those first panels will start to reach the end of their lifetime and we'll need to recycle to make new panels with them. And to offer a bit more of a deep dive in the manufacturing that I mentioned about earlier before, which is a bit still a bit below the other segments in Europe. So we have the different supply chain process of how to create a module. So simply we start with polysilicon, the one completely on the right, which is the raw material that we use to produce solar panels. So it is that gray sand, that black sand that you use, which is then processed and transformed into ingots which are kind of big bricks that then we slice into wafers, we process them to create cells, we assemble those cells, and we have a module or a panel as we all know it. So looking at where we find workers on those industries in Europe, so that's very intensive manufacturing industry. We have a lot of polysilicon in Europe. This is one of the, it was one, and it is one of the leading segments in Europe with 21 gigawatt of production capacity and almost 5,000 people employed in that segment. Then for the ingot and the wafer industry, there's barely nothing actually in Europe at the moment. So we have very limited amount of workers in that segment, and it's mostly in cells and modules that we'll find new workers. Especially cells is really a growing segment as we speak, and module represents almost 8,000 people. But then the one that I haven't mentioned about, which is completely on the left side, is inverters. And inverters are a device that we use to convert AC electricity to DC electricity to AC electricity, so direct current to alternative current that we use to have lights on our lamp and electricity in our houses. And that one is the major chunk of manufacturing jobs in the EU. So we have 35,000 people working in that industry. It's an industry very well developed in Germany, in Spain, in Italy. We also have some in the Nordics. That is the core of the manufacturing jobs at the moment. And then if you look not into the different segmentation we have in terms of business and industry, but more in terms of countries in the EU, so where do we find most jobs? So what you have here is actually the top 7 countries in terms of solar jobs creation in the EU. So you see that Poland is actually the largest employers in the EU. That might come as a surprise for some, but actually Poland is a booming market, which is especially focused on rooftop and small rooftop. And as I will explain a little bit later in the presentation, rooftop is more job intensive than ground mounted. Even if we need both segments, the rooftop segment is a bit more intensive in that side. And that's why we have Poland, which is quite higher than Spain, the second largest market in terms of employment, with just above 100,000 people employed in the country. And then we have the classical, I would say, large-scale country in terms of PV deployment, which is Germany, Netherlands, Italy, Greece, and France, which are all countries which are really having booming markets of the solar PV in 2022. And then to come back to what I mentioned about the difference between rooftop PV and ground-mounted PV. So what is it exactly? So when we're talking about solar photovoltaics, we have two types of segments. Ones that most of us have already seen is the rooftop we see and the panels we see on rooftops, so on houses or on larger buildings, on industrial buildings. So those are considered rooftops. And then we have what we call utility scale here on yellow on the slide, which are ground-mounted PV. It is a solar park built immediately on the ground, which takes usually higher capacity. But what we see is that most of the workers are actually working in the rooftop segment, so the blue share on the screen. So at the very bottom, you have the EU27 average, and we see that around 3/4 of workers are employed in that segment, so on the rooftop segment. Why is that? It's mostly because economies of scale. When you are putting panels on the roof, you need one worker to install 5, 6, maybe 10 panels. Whereas when you move to the ground-mounted segment, it's mostly industrial scales, and then you can have one worker putting 50, 60, 70 panels. So there is a huge economies of scale, which created the fact that rooftop is a bit more job intensive, even though both segments will be crucial to achieve a clean energy transition in the EU. And then that's a bit it for the 2022 vision, I would say. So to the state of art in 2022, we had 650,000 people employed. But now what we would like to show is actually the prospects. So where do we see that industry going? And as it was mentioned in the introduction by Walburga, we have 650,000 now. In 5 years, we are expecting 1.2 million workers. We are doubling the industry in the next 5 years, and those were the forecasts we did last year. So it is even possible that we are even a bit higher than those now. So those new jobs will also most likely be into the deployment sector. Because with a solar industry growing, what we need actually now is a lot of installations and then a lot of new workers there. And what do we mean by installation? This is all electricians, we need roofers, we need engineers, we need designers, we need all technical jobs, we need research and development to also improve the technology. And there's also the manufacturing that I mentioned earlier. So the manufacturing jobs right now in the EU is quite low, but there is a lot of prospect right now, actually also mentioning for the energy security of the EU. The manufacturing of PV is a strategic sector in the EU to achieve that energy security. And there is a lot of push to bring back that industry and to actually create a lot of jobs in that segment. So that segment might include anything coming from the marketing, going from the accounting of the companies, going from engineering, going from research and development to improve the products. So those manufacturing, all the way from polysilicon to inverter, will also experience a large growth in terms of production capacity and then employment. And then if you look a bit at the different segment I mentioned earlier, so we have the deployment and the O&M. I already mentioned why the deployment will keep growing, because we need to install more panel. But of course, the more we install panel, the more we have a large base of already installed panels. So that's why we see the O&M, so the operation and maintenance, growing as well. The more we install, the more we need to take care of the large bases of the panel we need. So we're expecting the deployment level to go from the deployment jobs number to go from 540,000 to almost 1 million just by themselves only in 2027. Whereas on the O&M, we will grow from 50,000 to 126,000, so almost more than 2 times growth in the next 5 years also. And then if we look also at the country level, what are we expecting in 2027? We're expecting that even if Poland will no longer be the first country in terms of employment, it will still remain a high country, about the third largest one in terms of employment. But Germany will take the driving seat with the highest number of workers, which we are expecting to be at over 200,000 people working in industry. Why is that? Mostly because of policy. The target that Germany has set for the development of solar PV are way higher than the others, and we're expecting a lot of developments at the other countries, and so we are expecting a lot of developments coming from there. And then we have the country we already saw a bit before with Spain, Greece, Italy, and France. But we also have some newcomers, such as Romania, which we are expecting a lot of development to happen. Even in this week, there was some of the largest plants in Europe was announced, and it will be built in Romania. So there is a lot of jobs for everyone, and it will be in a lot of different countries, in a lot of different segments. So if I have to summarize a bit the key points and the highlights that you will need to remember from this presentation to make sure that we follow everything on the different sessions after. So in 2022, there was 650,000 jobs in the European Union related to solar PV industry. That's already a 30%, so a 39% growth compared to 2021 level, which was mostly driven by the largest increase in solar PV installation that we have seen in 2022. Out of those jobs, so far we have less than 10% of jobs related to manufacturing, so we have 8% of those, and most of those jobs in manufacturing are linked to the inverter production. And then in terms of different segments, so ground mounted versus rooftop, most of the jobs right now, it's about 3 workers out of 4 are working on the rooftop related business of the PV side. But what we're expecting for the coming years, so up to 2027, already in 2023, we're expecting growth of 25% and having already more than 800,000 people employed. So that's already a huge market growth for this year. But looking a couple of years ago, this growth will not stop. We have about 1 million jobs by 2025 and 1.2 million jobs by 2027. So it means that in the next 5 years, we will double the number of people working in the sector. And then on the manufacturing side, as I already explained a little bit earlier, we have a lot of policy development to recreate and reindustrialize the solar industry in Europe. So we're expecting almost 100,000 jobs by 2027, coming from less than 50,000, so also a doubling of the amount. So with that, I hope I was able to provide you a good overview of the solar PV. And now that you know and you have learned that there is so much possibility to actually find a job in the solar industry, we will double the amount of workers. We have created what we have called the Solar Work platform. It's an online platform on which you can log in, register, and find all the jobs that are listed in the EU for solar PV industry. And we have created 2 videos for that we will show you just right now for presenting.
if there's one thing you learned today, it is that solar is booming and looking for talent. And I'm guessing the promise of jobs is the reason you're joining us today. So you want to work in solar, but you have no idea where to start. Well, then we have just the thing for you, the SolarWorks platform. It's the first online recruitment platform for solar jobs, connecting you with solar jobs and trainings. On the SolarWorks platform, you can see how diverse jobs in solar can be, from highly technical engineering jobs to jobs in sales, marketing, and account management. No idea what kind of job you could do in solar? Don't worry, just tell us what your skills are, and the algorithm will match your skills with the skills the companies are looking for. And just like that, you may be part of the solar workforce sooner than you think. If you want to receive regular updates about the latest added vacancies in solar, then be sure to subscribe to our jobs newsletter and follow along on social media. See you there and enjoy the rest of the fair.
Thanks a lot to Christoph and Seen telling us more about the job market and about the jobs platform. So it is now time to hand over to the first panel of today. The first panel will bring us a number of testimonials from great solar professionals. You will hear more about the different possibilities of jobs in our sector. And the day will continue afterwards with some professionals giving you tips and tricks how you will best be getting a solar job. And don't also miss the diversity award that we will be handing over at the end of the day, where you also have a role to play, because we have 3 fantastic companies that we're presenting to you with their diversity strategies, and it's up to you to choose who will win the diversity award among these 3 these 3 fantastic companies. If you want to engage with us, please use the hashtag SolarWorksFair. Please engage with hashtag SolarWorksFair on social media with us. But for now, I'm happy to hand over to the first session. One thing I still need to tell you is that you can also engage with the professionals in the networking sessions and through our platform, so don't miss the opportunity to ask all the questions that you might have. But now it's up to Naomi Chevillard, our Head of Regulatory Affairs, to introduce to you the panelists and to get you more testimonials, get you more information on solar jobs in our sector. Thanks very much again for joining. Naomi, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Valborga, and welcome to this session. Indeed, I'm Naomi Chevillard. I'm Head of Regulatory Affairs at SolarPower Europe. And as we've just seen, the European solar sector is growing exponentially. We've seen 40% growth year on year. It's almost doubling the industry every year. And that means creating a lot of jobs. It also means creating a lot of jobs and different stages of the value chains, a lot of different career opportunities. But so what are these possible jobs? What do they look like concretely on a day-to-day basis? And how can you really build a career in the solar industry? This session is about that. We have the pleasure of having with us professionals from the solar sector who are here to share with you their experience of the jobs, the opportunities, and the careers that exist in our industry. So before we start the discussion, I also want to remind everyone that you can share your questions, your comments, your doubts through the chat. You should see a live discussion button in your app or website. So please do not hesitate and already share your questions through this chat, and we'll take them through the discussion. I will now turn to my panelists. Welcome, everyone. I will first ask you to tell us a bit about you and also about your day-to-day work in the solar sector. So I will start with you, Kalin. You're asset manager at Sunrock. So can you tell us a bit more about you, about your career path, about your story?
Good morning. As an asset manager at Sunrock, we it's not me. We're part of the asset management team. Right now, we're taking care of 500 megawatt peak under operation at different stages, from provisional acceptance all the way to the operational life that is post-fac. I'm part of a big wave of recruitment that happened at Sunrock that came with the big boom from last year that saw us growing and going from a Dutch-based company that was just doing PV rooftop, industrial utility scale PV rooftop, to now having offices in Germany, in France, looking into Poland also, and having this level of growth beyond scale. So the work itself, it's interesting, because you manage different types of things, from engineering questions, how does it work, or why does it work this way, why this fault wasn't fixed, legal questions, stakeholder management. It's quite diverse. Given the volume, sometimes it may be too much. It's also that's why we're hiring a lot. We're hiring in practically roles that go from the initial phase, from sales, project development, all the way through project management, asset management, data and IT, finance, everything. So it's a nice place to, and it's a very nice place to be. How do I got there? Well, I'm one of the few that started my engineering path to work in renewables. So I knew from the very beginning that I would do that. I studied in France, mechatronics and renewable energy. So how you manage the energy and how you transmit it into the grid. I didn't work immediately in solar. I worked in IoT for the energy transition in the mobility sector, but then I had to come back to solar because that was my first love. So I went through O&M, which is the basic part of solar after you build, and then I moved to asset management.
And if you could detail a bit more what asset management is, what are your tasks, what do your day looks like?
That's very hard because due to the diversity, you have to deal with everything. Um, we can start by saying, okay, you have a PV installation that is built according to certain specifications, and that PV installation was built with a promise that it needs to deliver energy, needs to be operating safely, and needs to uphold certain levels of quality. And what you need to do is you need to work with all the contractors and stakeholders to deliver that and make sure that it's delivered throughout the lifetime of the project. So it can be as simple as checking interventions with contractors and making sure that the quality of the work is proper, to making different improvements with the building, or seeing how to manage, well, last year was the storm event, so asset management had to mobilize in order to do a lot of damage control after storm happened. So plenty of things to do.
And you're in touch with clients, I guess, or your manager?
We're in touch with our contractors. We're in touch with property owners because the main business of Sunrock is large rooftop utility installations. We're in touch with the tenants, so people who are occupying the building, with grid operator, with distribution partners, with software providers for the services that we use. So we're a bit in the middle of all the environment because we kind of have to orchestrate that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's a very, let's say, position at the middle of the storm in between different stakeholders and different events. I'll now turn to our other guest with here with me in the studio, Miguel Herrero. You're a market and insight analyst at PVCase, also a former colleague at SolarPower Europe. So same question to you. Can you tell us a bit more about what PVCase is, what do you do, and how did you get there?
Thanks, Naomi, and thanks SolarPower Europe for organizing and having us here today. PVCase is a software development company developing productivity tools for solar engineers and developers and pretty much anyone involved in the development of a PV project to do their job better, more easily, and be able to face that huge mountain of work that Christophe was talking about before. We are a 5-year-old company. but our tools are already used to design over 1 terawatt of projects every quarter. So that gives you an idea about the pipeline globally for solar. We're present in over 80 countries, colleagues in over 20, and it's become a very important tool for our customers to be able to deliver on what they promise, and so that the job of the asset managers is as easy as possible because everything ends up working. As a software development company, we are constantly looking for all types of roles as well. I mean, obviously, software developers, people with different knowledges of different programming languages, project managers, but I think we're also very interested because we're in this intersection between software and solar, looking for engineers who are interested in maybe going into software development, but also engineers who have commercial and business acumen and who are willing and able to sell and to talk with other engineers. Because ultimately, what we do is we offer engineers the tools that they need, and it is engineers that need to be selling them. And beyond that, I think we're also looking for all types of different roles that don't need to be technical. And I think the bulk of the people that we look for are not necessarily technical. And so we're looking for salespeople, recruiters, HR managers, project managers to run the internal operations.
Yeah, it's a challenging job because you have to be very close to the client needs, and you have to really understand. And it's a real I was going to say a solution finder job. I feel. Can you tell us a bit more about what you do as a market and insight analyst?
Sure. I mean, I think my job is really diverse. Essentially, what I do is give advice to colleagues whenever they need to make a decision in order to help them make the best possible decision with the best available information. In that sense, what I do is sometimes I work with product teams in understanding technology trends in order for us to be able to offer what the market needs. Sometimes I work with marketing, helping them identify the markets where we need to increase our spend in order to reach our customers better. Sometimes I work with sales colleagues, telling them maybe we need to hire additional headcount in this or that country in order to face an incoming wave of solar installation. So it's what I love about it is that, I mean, it's not that every day is not the same, but I have the ability to look at every aspect of a company and contribute to it to run more smoothly. It's a little bit like my job is doing an MBA on the spot.
And can you tell us about the location of the company offices and?
Yeah. So the company is Lithuanian, which is not the first solar country that people think of, but it's a country where there's actually a lot of engineering and solar expertise. The company started there, but I think the management is very aware and open to remote work. And so it's this remote first philosophy is very ingrained in the company culture, and that allows us to attract people from all over the world, the best potential talent to join us from wherever they want, obviously with some constraints depending on time zones or the countries that they come from. But in principle, the world is our oyster when we're looking for talent. And I think that flexibility of having the possibility to work from the beach or the mountain or wherever it pleases you is really enriching.
Good to know. I think it's an important point of the solar industry. It's a young, it's a dynamic industry where things are possible. Maybe a last question to you, Miguel. How did you? What's your background? How did you get there?
So I don't have a technical background, and I think that's quite important for people to be aware. You don't need to be an engineer to work in solar. I studied politics and economics, and actually my first job was in drug policy reform, so nothing to do with energy. But then after some time, I ended up working basically as an assistant to one of the directors of a small developer in London, and that was my first foray into energy. That's when I learned the difference between a megawatt and a megawatt hour.
Important.
And a lot of different things that you just, if you're a normal layperson that doesn't work in energy, you don't know.
Mm.
And after that, I had the opportunity to do a Blue Book traineeship in the European Commission. These are, I recommend it to anyone who is interested in EU politics because it's really one of the best possible ways to learn how the EU works and how to make a positive impact into this common project. And from there, I joined SolarPower Europe, which was the moment when I really got down to business and understood and learned. It was a very steep learning curve. Everything that our sector has to offer, all the opportunities, all the challenges, and that was, you know it better than I do. It's an extremely enriching job, very challenging, but somewhere where you can actually make a big difference on
Mm.
very important topics. And from there, I then moved on to PV Case, where I'm a little bit maybe more behind the scenes, but again, still feeling like I'm contributing to make our world greener,
Mhm.
safer, and just all around a better place.
Mm.
With again, throughout my experiences in the solar industry, always with very nice people with
Mm.
whom I love to bits to work everything, all that I can.
Great. So making impact, working with nice people.
Yeah.
I will now turn to you, Marina Montero Carrero, your project advisor at Cinea, joining us online. Same question to you. What is Cinea? What's the relationship with solar, and what's your job there?
Hi, hello. So yes, I work at CINEA. This is the European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency. It's one of the executive agencies of the European Commission. And I work here as a project advisor within Horizon Europe Energy Program. Um, this means that I follow projects that are within Horizon Europe. They are mostly focused on research and innovation, and more precisely on renewable energies. So within my portfolio, I have projects on solar, also on wind, also on wave, micro cogeneration, larger cogeneration, etc. I have a wide range of projects working here. More widely, what does CINEA do? So we are an executive agency of the Commission. The European Commission, the directorates, really work on developing policy, and at the executive agencies, and more precisely in CINEA, we turn this policy into action. We implement the different programs, and CINEA very much, namely, works on implementing and supporting the Green Deal. There are different other programs that are managed here. I work at Horizon Europe, but there is also Innovation Fund, there is Connecting Europe Facility, there is Life, etc. On my day-to-day, what does it mean to be a project advisor for Horizon Europe? It means that I am managing projects through their entire lifetime. These are rather long projects, so it depends very much on how it is set up, but they can go from 3, 4, 5 years or even longer. And with consortiums generally that apply to a certain call for proposals, and the budget is also can also be very wide. So some projects are starting at around 2 million to up to 20 or 40 million, the bigger projects. And what we do really as project advisors is that we uh, we start from the analyzing the different calls that the directorates put out for different topics on funding, and we organize the evaluation. So we look for different experts, organize the entire evaluation process, moderate it, and then follow the projects from preparation of the grant agreement to then the technical development of the project. And this is making sure that everything goes according to plan. And if there are any issues throughout the implementation of the project, which they happen because these are research projects, so uncertainty is part of the process itself, then we help adapting to it and finding solutions to them. So in my case, even if someone might think, yeah, working for the European institutions, a technical background might not that be that crucial. Actually, for our work at CINEA and as a project advisor, it is quite important. It is important that you understand the different projects that you're following and that you understand the different problems as well. So for the profiles that are looked here, for example, a PhD is very well regarded, so that you indeed understand as well all the issues that can happen during a research project. Then, of course, other types of experience are also important, but yeah, mostly technical background and academic background, or certain applied background on the different renewable energy technologies is very much something appreciated.
Okay, and when it comes to you, what's your path? Because I believe you worked in the industry before joining CINEA.
Yes, indeed. So I have some experience in academia. So I carried out a PhD as well, and I worked as a researcher for a while. What I studied was electromechanical engineering with a specialization on energy, and then I did a second master's on sustainable energy as well. And then I carried out, I mean, after I was also a Blue Book trainee, such as Miguel. So I had some experience already at the European institutions, and it's something that, as him, I very much encourage because it allowed me to have an idea of how the European Commission works, of how really all the real European institutions interact, how life in Brussels is really. And following this, I went on and did a PhD. In this case, more technical and more based on my previous background during my first degree. So this was on thermodynamics and microgas turbine for small scale cogeneration. But already at this and my PhD, it was quite multidisciplinary. So it included, modeling, but also experiments and a policy and an economic analysis. So after finishing the PhD, I didn't really feel like pursuing a career in academia, and I changed to the private sector. And I worked for a renewable energy consultancy where this multidisciplinarity came very much into place. So there I worked in a team, the strategy and policy team. Mostly actually on a project with geographical islands, so helping to decarbonize European islands. And it very much focused on transition management, but also on understanding. I mean, there were many studies focused on resource assessment, both for solar and wind on these islands. And then, I gained there some experience on project management and overseeing projects on different renewable energy technologies. And after almost 4 years in renewable in consultancy, it's when I made the change earlier this year to CINEA, to the European institutions. So I believe that in my case, really the combination of having a bit of academic, a PhD, and then some academic experience, but also the private sector, it was a good combination that led me to the position where I am today.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a position that's a bit hybrid between, very technical research, if I understand you correctly, very technical research, and at the same time, like project management. You're a bit above let's say, the technical research, and here more to accompany the projects, right? But you're still following quite closely technical research. I don't know if you can have if you have a project that you can quote on which you're working these days.
Yeah, there are several projects. I can comment on one that finished a couple of months ago, or one that it's starting. So I have several projects, for example, of floating PV right now. So these are really demonstrator projects. They will build a floating PV farm. And what I would do typically is, well, first be involved in the evaluation of the different proposals, and here make sure that the procedure is in place so that the most promising projects are the ones selected. It's a decision of the experts, but yeah, there's a certain procedure that needs to be respected. And then on the day-to-day, I would well, first get to know very well the project, understand what the project is doing, and then make sure that all the different that the deliverables are submitted in time, that the deliverables are of quality, that the project is evolving well, that the demonstrator that it's planning to be built will be built on time and according to plan. And in case that there are any problems in the meantime, so there are any possible delays that would happen, that can happen, or any issue with the beneficiaries, etc., then assess and see how the project can proceed despite all these different problems. So indeed, I'm not implementing the projects myself, I am following them. But then there is where the technical background becomes important, just for you to be able to understand, even though you're not developing anymore, just you're looking at how the different consortia are developing. What is interesting, I mean, though, is that you are able to follow a wide portfolio of projects. So you're able to see that's it, how different technologies are evolving, how different consortia are leading, how you get to know, you have a very wide network of the different main actors in Europe, really, that are making a change in terms of new developments on solar and other renewable energies.
So we're coming back to those two conclusion works, the making impact and working with good people. With that, I'll turn to Kenneth Frey. You're a director at Huawei, a big technology and global company. My first question to you is, can you tell us a bit more about Huawei? What's the company like? What does the company do in the solar sector?
Sure, I can do that. I think it's a quite nice breach, because I think earlier it was already mentioned a little bit about inverter technology, and that being, of course, an important part of the PV system. So I think originally, as Huawei, we come from the ICT sector, but we do have a lot of different fields. I think many of you will know the company based on their smartphones, maybe laptops or some other devices. So you can see we're actually in a quite wide scope. Personally, I come from the digital power field, where one of our main business units is focused on the smart PV sector, as we call it internally. So that involves different products, ranging from inverters going to storage systems in the different segments, be it utility, commercial, industrial, or residential systems, and going further of having also, for example, transformer station solutions in the utility field. So that's basically what we're doing in the solar sector in Europe. We started about roughly 11 years ago in Europe. That's also at the time when I actually joined Huawei and also started working in the sector. I had the chance, and actually by now I must say also a little bit the pleasure, to have that opportunity to shift from the ICT business into this solar business, and have experienced that growth within Huawei in Europe, starting out at that time when we were only 4 people working on this business in Europe, to what is now grown to be, I don't have the exact figures, but definitely in the mid to high range, triple digit of employees all over Europe working on this topic. So yeah, I think we are a manufacturer, and as such, of course, quite present in different fields in Germany, with, of course, a very wide range of variety in terms of different jobs which are being occupied in Europe.
And speaking about that, can you tell us a bit more about what you do and what your team does, and also how has that evolved with the growth of the market and the growth of the company in Europe that you just mentioned?
Sure. Yeah, so my responsibility is mainly for the German market. So I've basically started off as a junior account manager at the time, so I'm not an engineer. I don't have that knowledge as my previous speaker Marina has. I did have the pleasure, nonetheless, even in that position, to experience a lot of technical aspects due to the fact that we also have an R&D center in Nuremberg, in Germany, which is where I also was based for a long time. So I think as we grew in the beginning, of course, the field of responsibility was quite flexible. I think as we continued growing in terms of team also in Germany, and the team grew, we opened up more and more positions. We are still opening up more and more positions, so different aspects with salespeople, engineers who are focused on pre-sales support, but also engineers who are focused on after-sales support. We are looking for R&D engineers from our R&D team in Nuremberg, and of course all kinds of platform support, which I think is quite usual in every company, be it ranging from finance, supply chain to HR. So building that team along in the last 11 years in Germany, and I think similarly for my colleagues in the other countries as well. So we are active in, I think, basically every European country.
That's good to hear, because there was so you mentioned you're covering the German market, but Huawei is present all over Europe. There was a question in the chat about opportunities in Greece. I don't know if you have a team in Greece.
Yes, we do have a team in Greece. I think it's I have to think about where it's situated, but it should be Athens, actually. So definitely we split up to have several regions. I think the bigger countries have specific teams for each country. Greece probably is combined with several other countries in the region, but to my understanding, the team is mostly based in Greece. So I'm quite sure that there should be opportunities open there, because from what I have seen this year, actually for almost all of the countries, they had open job positions.
Mm-hmm. Now, finishing the tour de table with you, Paolo. Paolo Corti, you're director researcher at Sunapil and researcher at SUSPI, if I'm correct. So, same question to you. Can you explain who you're working for and what you're doing in the company?
Yes. So basically, thank you everyone, and good morning everyone. In SUPSI, which is a research institute of applied science, we work on BIPV, which means building integrated photovoltaic system. Is a specific sector, we can say a niche market if compared with the solar market, and basically within the sector we make research, applied research, with a big project in a BIPV, so installation of photovoltaic system in buildings. But at the same time, since we are an applied research institute, we work a lot with materials, we make tests, we work with different stakeholders, also the construction value chain and also the PV value chain. And this is my job as a researcher here in SUPSI, but at the same time, I'm director of Sunapil, which is a solar consultant company, which I co-founded with other 3 co-founders. And within this activity, basically, we follow all of the paths of construction process, starting from the very preliminary stage of the construction process, feasibility studies. We work together with architects, designer, engineers, for example, in designing PV plants, but also deciding materials and components, making simulations, for example. And then we follow the designer, architects, constructor as well, during all of the implementation stages up to the end of life, we can say, end of the construction process and also operation and maintenance of this kind of BIPV project.
Very cool story to go from research to launching your company. When did you launch it, and how is it going now? Is it growing? Are you also hiring in the company, or are you already still at early stages?
Yes, so the company Sanapil is quite young. We created this in May this year. We decided to create this company because we saw that as a researcher, because a pure researcher, maybe you cannot find this missing gap within the construction value chain. But when you start then to work with different stakeholders of the construction value chain, then you recognize that at least now at this time, historical time, that something is missing. There is not a well connection between the construction sector and the photovoltaic sector. So we discovered that the figure here was the connection was missing, and we decided to create maybe also to create this kind of new figure in the BIPV sector, which is the solar consultant or BIPV solar consultant. That probably is necessary to keep together all of these stakeholders of the construction and PV value chain.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are working, we are growing. Yes, of course, there are new projects. Also, as I mentioned before, BIPV is a niche sector in comparison with PV. If you consider, I'm just providing some numbers. In Europe, the BIPV sector is about 1% of the market in comparison with the PV sector in Switzerland, where we are based. Now, the market share of BIPV is about 12%, we can say. So is a promising market, a larger market for BIPV. We see now new interest in construction and integration of photovoltaic system in construction. And yes, that's quite good for the BIPV market.
Mm. That's good to hear, and certainly the rooftop PV. I think Christophe was showing some figure, but the rooftop PV market is very dynamic now in the EU. So I'm sure a lot of opportunities. I just want to ask you a last question on your profile. You were mentioning that you started really from the technical with a technical background, a PhD. Can you tell us more about your background, your training?
Yes, my background actually is I'm a building engineer, so I start to approach the solar sector when I was studying making my master. Then I have to say that also since I am a building engineer, and at that time BIPV was not really probably well considered or also considered within my studies, my career. And also professor were a bit against of my focus on this activity. It was not really well considered, but I wanted to continue to work on this because I was interested, and I saw a large opportunity for the sector for me. And so then I decided to focus on these activities, and then I moved to the to SUPSIM, to this research institute, where then I start working on solar, and then starting in this career. Maybe if I can, just one note, because you mentioned the BIPV roof application or PV roof application. What we do, or maybe our goal is also to work on the wall building envelopes, so not only roof, but also facade integration of PV in facade system, or as a rain screen facade, windows, for example, and so just replacing a building material with PV, with photovoltaic.
You're absolutely right. Apologies for the the mistake, but indeed BIPV is fascinating. And if you don't know what BIPV is, do put it in Google or check our reports, because it's really fascinating. But thanks a lot to everyone for sharing your stories. I think it's really inspiring for our listeners. So if we conclude a bit this tour de table and if we look at what makes the solar industry attractive, like what do you think makes the solar industry attractive? Maybe particularly to you, Kenneth, and you, Colin, because you both moved from another sector to the solar industry. So why would you encourage people to apply to your teams, and what can people find there?
Should I start, Kenneth? Okay, I'll read your lips. I'm gonna go first. I think the very first thing that that drove me personally, and this is something that I identify strongly, especially at Sunrock, is that you're doing the right thing. We've been doing the wrong thing for a very, very long time, and now not only that you're doing the right thing, but you're there, you're in the middle, you're turning the tables. You're making sure that energy is produced from clean sources, and it's not just producing energy, it's how you handle the entire chain, because we as a developer to own, we're not just putting rooftops, panels on the rooftop, buying inverters and slapping them over there. We make sure that the use of energy is as efficient as possible. So that's why we say your energy just got smarter, because we're also looking at batteries, at energy control, EV charging. So you are involved in everything that you use with energy, and you feel that you're doing the right thing. And then if more people that feel that you're doing the right thing, and usually these people are some of the smartest people that I've worked with before, come together and we say we are on a mission, we're doing this together, and we have wind in our sails, then it's nothing that is going to stop us. And this feeling is really gets you out of bed in the morning.
Indeed. Kenneth, do you agree?
Absolutely agree. I mean, I did say it earlier already that in looking back at this past 11 years, it's my pleasure that I had that chance to shift at that time. So I think adding on to what Colin said earlier, I would just like to mention that the whole industry, as I have experienced it, is actually a very friendly and open-minded industry. So you can tell when you're working together with different partners or with different clients. And I don't want to bad talk other industries, but sometimes I do have the feeling that we are much more open in trying to find solutions, and it's more about working together to work out, because I think at least the majority of the people working in this industry believe that it's the right way to go forward, and that they're doing something good, and that we're actually moving something together. So that's the one part which I noticed working in this industry over the last 11 years. And for me personally, and I think also for our company, it was a proactive decision to come into that market at a time when actually the German PV market in Germany, I just repeated that, when the PV market in Germany actually collapsed at the end of 2012 due to some political decisions, we were still convinced that it's the right technology to move forward in. And I do still believe that.
Okay, so the being driven, working with good people. I think you also mentioned that, Miguel. How about the dynamism of the industry, the possibility to build a career? I think you mentioned that, Colin, earlier.
What's also very nice to see is that right now is probably discovering the Americas. You have a green field. There's so much work to be done. I also have to say that from Christoph's presentation for earlier, the operational stage of the projects of the assets, how we call them, it's severely underestimated. We should be having more jobs in that sector. Is that you can move however you want. You can come outside from solar. You can move inside solar. You can move up to management roles. You can move to the beginning of the pipelines and sales of development, or you can move to other fields, because it's such an integrating industry where you need data, where you need domain expertise, we need mechanical, electrical. I'm speaking for the technical part, but also you work with sales, you work with lawyers. You can do whatever you want. You can still do whatever you want. And that also kind of gives you a bit of peace of mind that I have the opportunities there. I can go for it.
Miguel, I saw you nodding when we talked about the careers. Is it also something that you share? Is it?
I mean, absolutely. I can only agree, and I don't think I have much to add. Just I really want to stress the sense of purpose. This is exactly the main thing that gets me up in the morning and like in front of my computer and traveling wherever I have to go, because I know that this is extremely important for all of the planet and the people and animals that live here, is that we do our job well and that we decarbonize quickly. And this is something that you feel not only with your job, but when you interact with everyone. And that sense of community, that good vibe, you know, when you're at events, at a trade show, you get along with people, and you everyone, because everyone has that common mission, you can do it. And the best thing about it all is that you can make money, and it's you don't have to be a hippie. You can be a hippie if you want, but it's you are not. It's not because you have a sense of purpose that you are putting aside your life. You know, and I think that's important to for the listeners to be aware, is that there are opportunities, and these opportunities pay well, and you will have do something good for the world.
Yes, definitely.
Indeed, indeed. It's quite an important part of the job as well, the
Yes.
practical perks. Marina, Paolo, I don't know if you want to add something or if we covered it all.
On my side, I fully agree. I mean, it started also from the words from Walburga at the end of the introduction, and with my with my fellow panelists here said, it is. I mean, working in this field is it really drives you. Only for that, it is this sense of this feeling of making a difference, of contributing to something that goes beyond you. So to me, that as well has been driving me throughout my entire, I mean, since my studies, and I think this is something really unique to the sector. So yeah, I fully agree with that, and I have been changing. I mean, even if I had a technical background from the start, I have been changing a bit careers from academia to industry to then the public sector, and as well within the energy field. And I mean, this is only enriching you, and I agree that the solar and the renewable energy world is really welcoming, and it's in need of people now. So I would encourage anyone who is in doubt to join and share really this feeling of fulfillment of contributing to something that is bigger and that will stay well beyond us. So it's something that we are starting. It's really a change and a revolution, and yeah, it's only empowering, really.
Paolo, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. Yes. I agree with all of you. And considering my experience, so what I do basically, I think it's a quite dynamic sector, also dynamic job, because maybe what I do from the beginning, you can go maybe you can make some tests on the photovoltaic system, but at the same time, then you have to go on the construction site and you have to work with architects and engineers. At the same time, you can make some economic calculations. So it's a quite dynamic, it's not boring activity. And yes. So.
Not boring, also important.
Yes.
um, we already talked a bit about this, about the needs of the sector, right? You all said that there are different opportunities everywhere. There is a possibility to grow in the companies, but can you tell us really like what are the sector's intentions and the skills that you see missing in the sector, and where would you like to draw our to lead our audience to apply, particularly I think Miguel, Colin, and Kenneth, you mentioned that a lot, the opportunities, but what's the number one need? I don't know if Miguel.
So maybe I mean clearly the big need in the industry is in deployment at all levels, and I think for what concerns PVKs, what we really see a need for is STEM profiles. That is generally the most difficult roles to fill, people with those technical skills who can come from anywhere, and sometimes it's people who might have come through a different route. You don't necessarily always have to study it. You can do different types of courses. You can retrain. But yes, I think those are the most challenging ones, where I think there's clearly a work to do as a as a society to.
Yeah, so technical roles that are implies technical engineering, and also, as you said, deployment, so more construction, more field work. Yeah.
I'll let Kenneth this time.
Yes. Kenneth, what's your number one objective for hires in the next 6 months?
I think answering it for me personally in Germany, and I think that applies maybe also to our other Huawei offices in a similar sense, engineers is actually the main positions which we're trying to fill. So as I mentioned earlier, both pre-sales and after sales, I think especially after sales, because we're looking right now, I think I mentioned it earlier, the overall market, not just us, but also other manufacturers, I think are selling more and more complete solutions with storage, with transformer stations. So I think there is a lot of work to do for all the manufacturers there. A lot of jobs being created in the after sales service part all over Europe, with these products coming more and more into the market, and this field, especially of battery energy storage, growing. I think to answer the question in the second part, and I think it was already shortly touched by Miguel, is also in Germany, I think with this rapid expansion of PV, which we're seeing, and this is not for us, but I think in the general industry, I think a lot of lack of installers in the market. So to really continue this pace, which the German government is setting out and the industry is trying to keep up with, I think a lot of lack of labor force in Germany in that field. So that's a gap which we still see as well.
Yeah, I think it's because there is engineers and there's field workers, and I would like to come back to that. Maybe Colin, you.
I'll also pick up on that too. Well, not all of the roles that we're looking for are roles that are purely technical, but I think, like Miguel said, we need people with STEM training. So either mechanical, electrical, civil, that have the basic building blocks, because then it's up to them how they want to use it. I personally, I'm an engineer that likes to stay close to engineering, so I'm leveraging that quite often. However, I have colleagues who come from engineering but want to go more into project management, into account management. But what really makes the difference is someone with a technical background, because on that technical background you can build the solar knowledge that you need. And well, after Kenneth and Miguel's job is done, parks come into operations, and of course you need a lot of people to build them. But the promise is we are going to generate energy for 15, 20, 25 years. And for that, you need skilled technicians. The level of skill to mount panels and inverters is something. But in order to maintain it and work on it, you require cross-discipline knowledge. You need to know a bit about networking and ICT, how inverters works, how DC current, how AC current works. And you kind of need to find everything in one person. And those are a lot of jobs that we're looking for, because if that's not the case, then we cannot keep the promise. And then all the nice vibes are starting to kind of go down. And what we really need as an industry is also to understand that throughout the life cycle we need these technical profiles, because if you do your job good, it's all nice publicity, but also we've seen situations where that base of field work and knowledge was missing, and we also saw not so happy things happening.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is that compared to what people would think, it's actually quite highly skilled jobs. You have to know, as you say, a lot of you have to have a lot of technical knowledge. You have to be project manager, sometimes a team manager. So
Yeah.
what do you think is appealing in this kind of jobs and is maybe not well known enough?
It's the diversity of it. And let's say if someone likes to travel, you get to see sites, you get to see places. That's how I discovered the Netherlands, for example, just by going to various sites and going on the roof, going in on the ground mounted. But yeah, I think that's the skill gap that we need to bridge and that we need to cater for, because what we have here is very nice, but we forget that the jobs that we have and that we will continue to have are based on building them and keeping them operational, which is a lot of people that need to be. And contrary to development, where you can move people around for, let's say, 3 months and then they go to other place, we need these people on site. You need them throughout the Netherlands, throughout the Germany, not throughout France, not concentrated in one place, because that makes the whole difference.
So you have to like traveling.
Yes.
And by the way, have some technical skills.
But also it means there are job opportunities for people everywhere. And if you have, let's say, some industries that are going a bit down, then I would say to those people that are watching or that have friends watching, if you feel that your industry is going down, come to solar. We have work for you.
Strong message. What about the research sector? Do you think that the solar research is in need of workers? Do you have issues attracting PhD student or postdoc student? What's your view, Marina and Paulo?
Yes, concerning the research sector, of course, we need new person, PhD students, and for example, working on specific activities, working on R&D, developing materials, products, especially in our sector, BIPV sector. We need a lot of development in and research in the new products, new materials, and also not considering just the existing technologies, standard photovoltaic technologies, but also new technologies. And talk about starting from thin film, amorphous, and so on, different kind of technologies and systems. So yes, we definitely need a new person.
More researchers.
If I
Marina?
may add, yes. So yeah, I agree. The diversity of the fields that might apply to solar research is very large, and that's something that we see also in all the different calls for proposals that we are currently getting. And I would also encourage anyone who is doubting to go ahead and try research and try a PhD. Doing a PhD doesn't mean that you need to necessarily want to become a professor in the future. You can get very valuable and very nice experience by doing it. I very much enjoyed mine, and it allows you to carry out your own project for a certain amount of time. You have a certain freedom when you're doing the PhD, and it gives you also very valuable experience for the future. Then you can change career path and go into the private sector afterwards, or the public sector. So it's something that I would encourage everyone, and I would also encourage women to get into this sector. It's something that we always see whenever it gets a bit more technical. It's always male dominated, but yeah, really don't be afraid. We are more and more every time. And it's it's super interesting. It's challenging. We need diversity. It's always nice to see other fellow women and really STEM. Yeah, I hope that we start seeing now. I mean, we start seeing a change, and I hope that we continue seeing it in the future. Yeah, with other fellow ladies joining the field.
Absolutely, it's a very good point. I can only agree to that, and that's why it's very good to have you in this discussion, because we also need models for women, or for any diversity model that can incentivize diversity in the industry. I see everyone
Yes.
agrees. Yes.
Strongly, strongly. One other thing that is also refreshing when you work in solar is the diversity. I'm Romanian. I studied in France and I live in the Netherlands, so it was already quite a change for me. But because of the culture of the industry, I always felt welcome, and I found my place. And I also see colleagues from Africa, from Asia, from the Americas, colleagues who are LGBTQ that find their place, and it's normal for them to be there, and that makes you feel like, yeah, this is the place of the future.
Yeah, I no, absolutely. It's good to hear. I also want to mention that well, first, the solar industry is the one the most diverse when it comes to gender diversity. I think it's figures from IRENA, and SolarPower Europe has been working at our own diversity strategy that we're sharing with members. We do think it's important to work on that. Maybe that's a good bridge to another question I had for you, because we talked a lot about like the STEM skills that you need, but I wanted to hear your opinion and your advice on how to get those solar jobs and how to get the right skills. Do you have advice on what are the best training, and also what are the best retraining options? Do you have good tips in terms of retraining if you're a worker that wants to change career and shift to the solar industry, or do you have in your companies good retraining programs already? Voilà. How do we get the solar skills? Who wants to take it? Kenneth?
I can try.
Yeah.
Kenneth, you go first. You smiled
No,
already,
you
so.
go. I went first last time, so you feel free to go first this time.
Okay. I would say on the critical path, meaning development and operation, I would say your best bet is to go for electrical skills. Start with that. Electrical skills, electrician, wiring, and then technician in electrical engineering, and so on. An even better option would be electronics, power electronics. Then that would open a bit more options for you. However, there's another very important component that solar has. Solar is almost by default on the operational level a digital technology. So another path would be going to ICT, because we're looking for field network engineers and technicians, data engineers, data scientists. So these are, let's say, the two that would be probably kind of a certain win, like a sure win, go for that. Otherwise, there's also value if you come from other fields of engineering that you have, and I think Marina mentioned this,
Yes.
very good project management skills, because things are complex, they're going to stay complex, and you need to be able to manage that complexity. And specifically on training, I think right now there's a boom of online platforms. You can do it by yourself, but also a lot of manufacturers propose very good training courses, not specifically, but in general topics to get you up to speed with your electrical engineering, with your knowledge of inverters, knowledge of modules, etc. And a lot of them are for free. So it just takes time and commitment, I think. But the resources are out there. And very important, if you don't know in which order, thank you again. SolarPower is best practice guidelines. It really tells you what you need to know, and it helped us a lot as a company to guide our processes in our recruitment.
We also have a jobs report that I hope can appear in the chat with our, if my colleague posted in the chat, that will give you an idea of the different jobs. Kenneth, do you want to add anything? And then I have a question for Marina.
Yeah, I just add maybe 2-3 sentences to that. So I think Colin pointed it out. I think the important part is, do you have the general background? I mean, there are lots of different jobs. So I mean, from an engineering point of view, of course, it helps if you have a general electrical engineering background, or maybe in different roles, other kind of engineering background. You don't necessarily have to come from the industry. So we had many cases of people transitioning from other industries, being engineers in. It takes, of course, some time, and I think it's also part of the company's jobs, of course, to facilitate that. I think additionally to your question where you mentioned what kind of retraining, I think in Germany there are a lot of association and institutions like IHK, for example, which is the trading, I don't know what the right English word for that is, kind of like a governmental trading platform which offers all kinds of trainings as well, specifically for the PV sector, retraining people for the PV sector, regardless of the background. So there are different courses for that. And I think if we're looking into project management, Colin mentioned it as well, we have also had several cases of project managers from completely different fields coming in, joining us, who transitioned very well into the PV sector. Inside of Huawei, as I mentioned earlier, we have different business segments. So we had salespeople, marketing people, engineers, everything transitioning from different business groups into the PV sector. I think it works, so it's not something which anybody should be scared of. I think the most important thing which counts is the willingness to transition.
And no, you're right. And I think there are also a number of masters in renewable energies, a 1-year master that can be taken in evening classes. We know of, I think, EUREC, a research organization, proposes this kind of masters, but there are a couple of resources. I thought, Marina, you had done one of these, but maybe I'm wrong. You just had the basic,
No, yeah, I did a full master's, so at Imperial College, and that was a 1-year master's. I got a fellowship to carry out this master, so it was Iberdrola, the Spanish electricity company. So yeah, anyone who is doubting and who might not have the means, there are fellowships also out there. So yeah, I think this is really there are many opportunities. So I would encourage anyone to take a look and to try to apply to all the different possibilities.
So a lot of resources. Maybe a last question also to you, Marina, because the CINEA is a particular agency. It's an EU agency. How do we get in?
So there is a full procedure to get in. There are different ways. So you can get in as a contract agent in the commission, which the procedure is a bit lighter than if you want to get in as an administrator. The advantage of being a contract agent in an agency in the commission is that you can get an indefinite contract after 2 renewals, which doesn't happen if you are a contract agent in the different directorates. There you have a maximum time of 6 years. So yeah, it is a procedure that requires several exams and interviews. And my main advice would be, try to understand the procedure as well as you can. It might seem daunting at first. So if you're interested in getting into the European institutions, really there are, through social media, there are different groups that provide information. There are supporting platforms as well. And try to connect with people who might already be inside and can guide you through the process. So in my case, it felt really daunting at first. And once I got really hands-on and really understood how the process went, it was easier than I felt at first. But yeah, it requires some work. So it's and some time as well. So if you have it in plan, don't think that it's something that can go fast. It really can take several months up to years to really get in. So it's something that you have to think of in a bit medium term and start working towards it.
Yeah. And I guess the first resource should be the CINEA website. There probably is a career sections where you should be able to find all the data.
Exactly. Yeah, there's on the website, all the job vacancies are published there, and they're more wider for all commission directorates and agencies and institutions. Then there would be the EPSO website, where there you can find everything and filter according to your profile and location, etc.
Good luck to those who will undergo this process. We're reaching the end. I still want to give a final word to Miguel and Paolo. What's your top tip to someone who wants to work in the solar sector?
I mean, it's literally just reach out. In fact, it's how I got my job at SolarPower Europe. I contacted our previous boss because I was looking for work, and I just went to have a coffee, which turned into an interview. And I think, you know, we are looking for people so much that if you find someone contacts you, you know, whenever someone contacts me, I'm always willing to talk to them, because more often than not, it's very valuable people who are motivated, and there's a lot of jobs to go around. So it's easy to connect them, to put them in touch, and potentially even hire them ourselves.
Very good. Paolo?
Yeah, I can just talk about the BIPV sector. So if you are, for example, architects, or you would like to work within this construction and photovoltaic sector, I can just say that there are a lot of opportunities. So the sector is growing really fast. And if you're specialized in this solar activity, solar approach, also as an architect, especially as an architect, then you have a lot of new opportunities. And yes, and of course, a great career in the future.
Good to hear. We'll have to conclude here. I would like to thank you a lot. So big thanks to our 5 speakers for sharing all of those insights and those stories. The weather is not great in Brussels, but I did have a good shot of energy with this discussion. So thanks a lot, and I give back the floor to my colleagues for the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
us.